Phenomenal. I don't know that there's a better way to kick off 2020 if we haven't had a chance to meet yet. My name is Gerald Fadayomi. I have the privilege of serving as one of the pastors here at Mountain Lake, and welcome to 2020. Happy New Year. Awesome. Hey, why don't you turn to your neighbor and tell them, I'm glad to be sitting next to you. I'm glad to be sitting next to you. Good. Now turn to the other neighbor that you neglected and say, I love you too. I love you too. I'm glad you're here. I'm glad to be sitting next to you as well. Well, hey, with the new year, we thought it was appropriate to kick off a new series. And so we're starting a brand new series this morning that'll go for 4 weeks, including this week. And we'd love for you to join us for each of these weeks. We're calling the series Overrated. And the concept behind this series is really simple, that with a new year comes new goals, new resolutions, and opportunity to be a new version of you. But some of the goals that we pursue don't leave us where we ultimately want to be. That some of the goals that we pursue end up being a little bit underwhelming and they don't lead to the results that we're hoping for. And so there's 4 things in particular that we believe are just a little bit overrated, that pursuing them won't ultimately get you what you're looking for. And so we'll start with the first one this morning. I'd love to pray for us, and then we'll jump into week 1 of our new series, Overrated. Father, thank you for this morning. We pray that you would speak to us. Thanks for your word, and we just ask that you would move. We love you and we thank you. In Jesus' name, amen. So the worst thing that happened to me in 2019 is 4 letters. HGTV. My wife and I got married a little under 3 years ago. We moved into our first apartment, which we absolutely loved. We decided to move out of that apartment and just felt the Lord calling us to be better stewards of our resources. And so we moved into a friend of ours' basement. And for a year and a half, we saved as much as we could. We paid off all of our debt. And then we just bought our first home about 6-7 weeks ago. And so we moved. Oh, thank you. That's so great. Y'all are so much nicer than the 9:30. They didn't clap, so thank you. So we move into our first home, and it's really great. You know, it's pretty much move-in ready, except for if you watch HGTV. Because if you watch HGTV, nothing is move-in ready anymore. You move into the house and you go, that wall has to go, that door has to move, and you think moving a door is really simple to do, but it's not simple to do. You don't just move a door. It costs $2,000 and a lot of hours and a lot of stress to move a door, to just move a door. I've been telling my wife in 2020, hey, anytime you say just know that equals about 17 days of work for me. Just is never just, right? And so we move into our new house, and I've been paying all these contractors to do all these different things in our house, but on a pastor's salary, I quickly realized I can't afford to pay you to do all of this stuff. And so I have to figure out how to do it on my own. And so watching a lot of YouTube videos and trying to figure out life, I've started doing these projects in my house on my own. Now, doing these projects is requiring me to use tools that I don't normally use, tools that I'm not really familiar with, right? Like I used a hammer this year, which is a thing, apparently. I built a pantry, and so try to figure out how to do that. I've been using a drill a lot more than I would normally use a drill, but one of the tools that I find myself using often is a ladder. Because I told myself that I would paint our entire house in 24 hours. A week later, and multiple trips up and down this ladder, our house is finally fully painted, and it's beautiful, but I just spent a lot of time on this ladder, climbing up, climbing down, trying to hit corners, trying to get the trim, trying to make sure everything looks good. I spent a lot of time on this ladder, and as I was climbing up and down the ladder over and over and over again, I was just reminded of this really simple truth, that we spend a lot of our lives climbing ladders, don't we? We spend a lot of our lives climbing ladders, not just to renovate a house, but in life in general, we climb a lot of ladders. Let me show you what I mean. Because we live in the culture that we live in, and it's kind of performance-based, and we're trying to constantly make our way to the top, we find ourselves climbing ladders in every area of our life. If you're a college student and you're still home and you haven't made it back to school yet, this is true when it comes to school for you, right? Like if you actually wake up for your 8 a.m., which is a gift from the Lord, amen, then you understand the concepts your professor's teaching a little bit better. And if you understand the concepts, then you get better grades. And if you get better grades and you have a higher GPA, and if you have a high enough GPA, then you keep hope and your parents still love you, right? Like you get what you deserve. What you put into life, you get out of life. And so we climb the ladder to get the grades that we're hoping for that'll lead to the status that we're ultimately looking to achieve. If you don't keep hope, your parents stop loving you and you can never come home again. So you climb the ladder to get what you deserve, to reach a particular status. This is true if you work. If you're a working professional in the room, you know that this is the way that it works at work, right? At least it should, is that you show up at work and you do your job. If you do a good job, your boss takes notice and you might get a promotion. If you do a good job when you get a promotion, you might get a raise. Continue to do a good job, then you might lead a division. If you do a good job leading that division, you may get to lead the department. And if you continue to work hard, you eventually get what you deserve. You climb the ladder and you get to a particular status. This is true when it comes to school. It's true when it comes to work. If you watch professional sports, it's true when it comes to sports. You play sports all of your life. You climb up the ladder to eventually become a professional. This is true in every area of our life. It's so true, in fact, that we spend so much time climbing ladders that this translates into areas of our life where it doesn't really belong, but it still kind of works. Like your marriage, for example. It's Friday, you get off work a little bit early, so you head home. You get home and you realize, oh my gosh, we didn't finish doing the dishes last night, so I'm gonna be a good husband and I'm gonna do the dishes. You finish doing the dishes and you look in the dryer and you realize, oh, there's still laundry that hasn't been folded, and so I'm gonna fold the laundry, and I'm even gonna match the socks, because there's the missing socks that never happened, and so you match the socks, you fold the laundry. You finish doing that and you realize, oh, I still have a little bit more time, my wife's not home yet, and so I'm gonna go ahead and make dinner for our family, so you go ahead and you make dinner. Well, now that you've done all of these things, your wife is just opening the front door, and you look at her with that face. Come on. Come on now. Praise me. Praise me for doing one time the thing that you do every day. Come on now, praise me, girl. Give me what I deserve, right? And she's like, oh my gosh, thank you so much. I'm so grateful for you. And you're like, yes. It's my moment. This is where I make the ask. And so you give her those eyes. You lick your lip. So, got off work early, came home, did the dishes, folded the laundry. I even matched the socks, girl. Come on now, I'm killing it. Dinner, it's done. So, come on now. I'm just wondering, you think maybe I could go play golf with my friends this weekend? See, some of y'all need to get your mind out of the gutter at church, okay, right? You get what you deserve. What you put into life is what you get out of life. And we see this in every area of our life. We are constantly climbing ladders. And oftentimes as we climb these ladders, the reason that we're doing that is because we're really pursuing one word, and the word is simple, it's status. We're pursuing status. We are trying to get to a certain level, to a certain position, to a certain place. And so we climb the ladder over and over and over, hoping to eventually get to the position that we're hoping for, the status that we're hoping for. For a lot of us, as you think about your New Year's resolutions or the goals that you have for this year, when you really boil them down, they come back to this word status. Maybe for you, your goal for this year is to get a certain promotion or to lead a certain part of your company or to end up being the boss and kind of having the weight and the responsibility and the power that comes with that. For some of you, maybe you're still in college in the room and your goal is to graduate with honors, and so you're doing all of this work, you're climbing the ladder to graduate with honors, or if you're in high school, your goal is to get the valedictorian, and so you're doing all of this work so that you can eventually reach this status. Maybe you're a mom in the room and your goal, your resolution, your plan is just to be the best mom in the neighborhood, and so you go to all the PTA meetings and you do all of the things that you need to do in order to reach the status. Here's the thing, I don't know what it is for you, but what I do know is true, that in a lot of ways, all of us are climbing ladders and we're trying to reach a particular status, but there's a problem with status. The problem with status is this, is that we can spend years of our life trying to climb a ladder to get the position, the promotion, the title, the status, the power that we were looking for, only to find out that it wasn't what we really thought. And that you get to the top of the ladder and there's still a void. You get to the top of the ladder and it still feels like there's something that's missing. We get to the top of the ladder and we're still unsatisfied. I was thinking about this idea and I was reminded of a quarterback that most of you have heard of. His name is Tom Brady. I'm really glad that he lost last night, by the way. Tom, if you're watching this, I just want to say to you, I love you, Jesus loves you, but we don't forgive you for what you did to the Falcons, and so we're glad. Karma, it happens. I don't even believe in karma, but you got it, right? But I was thinking about Tom Brady and reminded of an interview that he had on 60 Minutes where he said this. He said, there's times where I'm not the person that I want to be. Why do I have 3 Super Bowl rings and still think there's something greater out there for me? I mean, maybe a lot of people would say, hey man, this is what is. I've reached my goal, my dream, my life. Me? I think, God, there has to be more than this. I mean, this can't be all that it's cracked up to be. I've done it. I'm 27. What else is there for me? 3-time Super Bowl champion at this point. Married to supermodel. And some would say that he's the Michael Jordan of football. And yet, still goes, something's missing. I've climbed my way to the top of the ladder. I've reached the ultimate status, and something is still missing. You see, status is overrated, and the reason why is because status will never satisfy. And for some of us, we've locked our eyes on climbing up the ladder. We've locked our eyes on this promotion. We've locked our eyes on this position. We've locked our eyes on this goal that we've set for the year so that we can reach this particular status. But the reality of reaching that status is you will do whatever it takes to get there, and then you'll get there and realize you're still unsatisfied. Status isn't the goal, because status isn't even what you really want. You don't really just want the position. No, what you want is the respect. You don't want to just be seen as the best mom in the neighborhood. No, you want to be loved. You don't want to just be the valedictorian. You want to be seen. You want to be noticed. It's not that we really want status. What we really want is significance. What we really want is to matter. What we really want is to be loved, known, respected. And so the better question for us to ask as we kick off a new year is not how can we climb the ladder and get to status. The better question that we should ask is how do we find significance? Because that's what we actually want. To answer that question, I want to take a look at a conversation that Jesus has with his disciples. And how we get to the conversation is really interesting. Jesus has now, for the 3rd time, predicted his death. He's telling the guys, hey, we're going to Jerusalem, and when we get there, it's not going to be pretty. I'm going to be arrested. I'm going to be falsely arrested. I'm going to be accused of crimes that I didn't commit, and then I'm going to be crucified on a cross. And they can't quite understand what it is that he's saying, even though he's spelling it out really clear. But because it feels like the climax of the story is about to happen, this seems like the perfect moment for James and John, 2 of the disciples who were brothers, to ask Jesus for a favor. And that's where we pick up Matthew chapter 20. Starting in verse 20, we'll read through 28 and then have a quick conversation about it. It says this. It says, then the mother of Zebedee's sons, the mother of James and John, came to Jesus with her sons and kneeling down asked him for a favor. What is it you want? He asked. She said, grant that one of these 2 sons of mine may sit at your right and the other at your left in your kingdom. You don't know what you're asking, Jesus said to them. Can you drink from the cup that I'm going to drink? We can, they answered. And Jesus said to them, you will indeed drink from my cup, but to sit at my right and left is not for me to grant. These places belong to those whom they have been prepared by my Father. When the other 10 heard about this, the other 10 disciples, they were indignant with the 2 brothers. So Jesus called them together and he said, you know that the rulers of the Gentiles lord it over them, and their high officials exercise authority over them. Not so with you. Instead, whoever wants to become great must be your servant, and whoever wants to be first must be your slave, just as the Son of Man did not come to be served, but to serve, and to give his life as a ransom for many. These 2 brothers come to Jesus asking him for a favor. Jesus, when you establish your kingdom, I don't know what that's going to look like. I don't know if it's a kingdom in heaven. I don't know if you're going to resurrect and come back, and then you're going to take over all of Israel, and you're going to have a kingdom here. I don't know what this kingdom is going to look like, but when you establish your kingdom, will you give us status? Will you make us important? Will you give us the position of your right and your left hand. They ask Jesus for this favor, and they ask him for this status, and I love the way that Jesus responds to them. He says, you don't know what you're asking for. Can you drink from the cup that I'm going to drink? You have no idea what you're asking. You see, the first thing that we see in this conversation that we need to keep in mind as we go into 2020 is that the cost is greater than we think. The cost of status is far greater than we think. And these guys are coming to Jesus going, if you give me this status, then I'll have this power and this influence and this respect and this love. Like, I'll have all of the things that I really, really want. And so, Jesus, could you please just give me the status? And Jesus is going, you don't know the responsibility that comes with the status that you're asking for. You don't know how heavy that crown will be. You don't know what it's going to take. I am literally about to go into the city and give my life for the world. I'm about to die for this. Are you willing to put your life on the line for what you're asking for? The weight and the responsibility is far heavier than you think. And for a lot of us, as we go into 2020 with these dreams and goals and hopes of reaching a status or a position or getting some sort of title, I think Jesus would say to us this morning, hey, the cost of that is far greater than you think. Like, you think it's just more influence and more wealth and more power and more respect and more opportunity, but it's much more than that. It's more responsibility. It's more people to manage. It's more nights away from your family. It's more pain. It's more trial. It's more pressure to perform. The weight is far greater than you think. And so Jesus looks at these brothers and he goes, you don't understand the weight of what you're asking. I'm telling you, you don't want to carry this weight. But they say to him, no, Jesus, we can. Jesus, we can handle it. Jesus, we can carry the weight. And so Jesus responds to them and he says, hey, listen, like, you may think that you can carry it. I totally get it. But here's the deal. You're going to have to drink from the cup that I'm going to drink from anyway. You're going to be persecuted for your faith. That's going to happen. But the right and left hand thing, that's not up to me. To be my right and my left hand, that's up to the Father in heaven. I cannot decide that for you. So to answer your question, no. I can't give you the status that you're looking for. And you would think that that would be the end of the conversation, but it's not the end of the conversation, because the conversation wasn't just with Jesus, this mom, and the two brothers. There were 10 other disciples. And they heard the conversation. And they were extremely frustrated. Like, really, James? Really, John? That's what you're going to do? You're going to get your mom to go ask Jesus to make you important? I remember growing up, whenever I wanted my friends to spend the night at my house, I wouldn't ask my mom. I would have my friends ask my mom. Because I knew it was a lot harder for her to say no to my friends than it was for her to say no to me. And so these brothers try this with their mom, and Jesus is like, no, I see right through it. But the brothers are like, really? Are you kidding me? Your mom, bro? Come on. And there's this argument that begins. There's this fight that begins to occur. And so as they're arguing and fighting it out, Jesus steps into the middle of the conversation and goes, whoa. This should not be happening. If you're fighting over that request, it's because you don't understand the way that my kingdom works. So let me be clear about how this works. You know the Gentiles, the rest of the world? You know how their leaders lord their authority over people? You know how they climb the ladder and make it to a certain status and then make sure everyone else serves them? You know how that works everywhere else in the world? Not so with you. That's not the way that it works if you follow me. Second thing we need to see in this conversation with Jesus and his disciples that we should keep in mind as we go into 2020 is that we have been called to a different standard. Is that as followers of Jesus, we have been called to a different standard. You know how the rest of the world works? We don't work that way. You know how the rest of the world climbs the ladder and hopes to get to a certain status? That's not what we do. You know the way the rest of the world pursues wealth and influence and power? We don't work that way. We've been called to a higher standard. We've been called to a different way to live. And I love this so much because it seems restrictive on the surface, but in reality, Jesus wasn't restricting his disciples. And he's not restricting us. He's not just giving us some arbitrary rule to keep us from the thing that we really want. In fact, in Jesus saying this, he's giving us a road to the thing that we're actually looking for. He's going, we don't do what they do because it's never going to get you what you really want. And what you really want is significance. And so I'm going to show you the way to get there, and it's not by climbing the ladder. That's why he says what he says next. Whoever wants to be great among you must be your servant. Whoever wants to be first must be your slave. Just as the Son of Man did not come to be served, but to serve, and to give his life as a ransom for many. You want to know the way to be great? Follow my example. You want significance? Do what I did. As I left all authority in heaven and came to this broken planet, and while I could step on the planet and go, you serve me, you do what I say, you serve the way that I want you to serve, you live the way that I want you to live, you do whatever I ask you to do, while I could lord my authority over you, I chose not to. Instead, I chose to be the servant who would get on his hands and knees and wash the feet of my disciples, to do the lowest work of the lowest servant in the house. That's who I am. The kind of God who would go to a cross and sacrifice my entire life for you, even though you haven't earned it or deserved it. That's the kind of God that I am. And so if you want to know what it means to be significant, if you want to know what it means to matter, if you really want to make it somewhere in life and you want your life to count for something, it's not climbing the ladder to get to a status. It's giving your life away in service. Essentially what Jesus says to his disciples is, hey, if you want significance, well, it's found in serving. That significance is found in serving. It's not found in getting to a status or a position or being the best mom in the neighborhood or the valedictorian. It's found in giving your life away to the people around you. And I don't know about you, but this is really good news for me. This is really, really, really good news. Because for me, that means I don't have to be a 3-time Super Bowl winner to be important or to be significant. For me, it means I don't have to be the best mom in the neighborhood, dad in the neighborhood, to be significant. I don't have to have the best grades, go to the best college, be the smartest person in the room in order to be significant. I just have to have a heart that's willing to serve. I love the way that Dr. Martin Luther King said this. He said, everybody can be great because everybody can serve. You don't have to have a college degree to serve. You don't have to make your subject and your verb agree to serve. You don't have to know about Plato and Aristotle to serve. You don't have to know Einstein's theory of relativity to serve. You don't have to know the second theory of thermodynamics and physics to serve. All you need is a heart full of grace and a soul generated by love. And you can be great. And you can find significance. And you can find meaning. It levels the playing field for all of us. And it says each and every one of us have an opportunity, have the potential to be significant in our world. So essentially what Jesus does is he calls his disciples together. And he goes, no. This is the road to significance. This is the way to really matter. This is the way to get the thing that you're ultimately looking for. Significance isn't about climbing ladders. Significance is about becoming a ladder. Because if you want significance, that's how you find it. If you want to matter, that's how it happens. It's not that you climb the ladder to the top. It's that you become the ladder for someone else. That you elevate other people's needs and worth and significance. That you help other people get to the places that they're trying to go. That you help other people become who they're wanting to become. That ultimately you help other people become who God is calling them to become. That significance isn't found in climbing the ladder, it's found in becoming a ladder. But here's the problem with becoming a ladder. It means you'll be used. It means you'll be stepped on. But you know what I love so much about my ladder? It's never once complained about me stepping on it. It's never once complained about being used. You know why? Because its purpose is to help me reach places I couldn't reach on my own. And Jesus is looking at his disciples, and he's looking at you and me, and he's going, they might take advantage of you. They might use you. They might never say thank you. They might step all over you. But your purpose is to serve. Your purpose is to help other people reach their potential. Your purpose is to be used by me to help others see who I really am. And so that might mean moments that don't feel so great for you. But at the end of your life, would you rather it be said that you climbed to the ladder and reached a position and you had some status? At the end of your life, would you rather it be said, man, he really helped me become the person that I wanted to be? Man, she really sacrificed to help me become the woman that I am today. I wish I would have said thank you more. See, we have a choice. Which story will be true at the end of our lives? Will we be a people who continue to climb ladders, or will we be people who become ladders and elevate the people around us? I want to show you what this practically looks like. A couple of years ago, at my previous job, I had some volunteers who worked for me. They were awesome. I want to show you a picture of them. This is Scott and Lacey and their beautiful family. They have 2 twin girls, and that's Morgan in the middle. And as I was thinking about this sermon, I was just reminded of their story. Scott led a group of high school boys. Lacey led a group of high school girls, and we're on the way down to this camp. We get down there, and Lacey has this group of girls with her, and they're having a good time. But they get to this small group time where they start sharing what's going on in the world. And one of the girls in her group begins to share about the foster home that she's living in, and how there's some things happening in the foster home that are making her a little bit uncomfortable, and she doesn't know what to do about it. And so she shares this with Lacey, and Lacey shares this with us, and we end up having to call DFACS and report it. And so DFACS lets us know that, hey, at the end of camp, we're going to have to come pick up the student, and we're going to have to take her out of her foster home and into a group home. And so the whole 6.5-hour bus ride home, she's terrified, she's in tears. She's worried about what her future is going to be. She pulls up to the church and gets out of the bus. She's met by her social worker. Everything that she owns is in the back seat and in the trunk. No smile, no hug. She drops her head and she sits in the back seat of this car. She's driven off to a group home in the area. But Lacey would not let that be the end of her story. So every week, Lacey would leave her house a little bit early, and she'd go and she'd pick this girl up from a group home. She'd bring her to church with her every night, and have church and small group, and they'd talk about life, and then she'd take her to dinner or bring her to her house for dinner, and then she'd drop her back off at the group home. And she did that for a little while, but then she felt this tugging in her heart, and she went to her husband and went, hey, Scott, I feel like God's leading us in a direction. I feel like God might want us to foster, but it's a process. Like, yeah, but I think we should do it. And so after months and months of going to classes and trainings and court cases, they fight and they fight and they fight and they fight, and they eventually become foster parents. And on her 18th birthday, they fostered this student, Morgan. Can you show the picture again? That's her right there in the middle. Ran into Morgan a couple months ago and asked her how she was doing. She said, I'm great. Mom and Dad are doing really, really well. My sisters are awesome. And I had to pause for a second because I was like, who is she talking about? And then I remembered. Oh, when she says Mom and Dad, she's talking about Scott and Lacey. When she says my sister, she's talking about these twin girls. That she's been adopted into a family. She feels at home. Enough to call them Mom and Dad. You know what's crazy about Morgan's story is, according to all the statistics, she should have gone to jail a long time ago. She should have never graduated from high school, and there's a very, very slim chance that she could ever go to college. Morgan's a freshman at Mercer University right now. She's beat all the odds. No statistic is true of her. But why? Scott and Lacey became a ladder. They could have fought for their own status. They could have fought for their own success. They could have done what it takes to make it to the top of the ladder, but instead they decided, you know what, all of that we can set aside for just a moment because there's a girl who needs a home. And we're going to be a ladder for her. And it's gonna be a process. It's gonna be hard. And there are days that we're gonna feel stepped on, but it's worth it because at the end of our lives, no one will talk about the status that we had, but Morgan will talk about the impact that we made. That became a ladder. I just wonder what it would look like for us to do that this year. For us to be a church that says enough of climbing the ladder, that's the way the rest of the world works. But as for us, as for Mountain Lake, we'll be ladders. We'll be ladders with our children here at our church. We'll be ladders to the middle school department. We'll be ladders in high school. We'll be ladders that celebrate recovery. But we won't just be ladders in this building. No. We'll be ladders all over our community. We'll be ladders to the nonprofits who need help. I'm going to sacrifice my weekend to serve them. We'll be ladders to our neighbors who don't deserve it. We'll be ladders to the HOA president. Some of y'all, that hit you in a good spot. We'll be ladders all over our community, but bigger than that, can you imagine if this was the mentality you brought home every day? You decided to be a ladder to your wife. You decided to be a ladder to your husband. And you would sacrifice your own desires to help them become the person that God has called them to be. Can you imagine if you decided to be this for your kids? That instead of lording our authority over them, we would say to our kids, hey, I want to help you become the person that God has created you to become, so let me do whatever I can to be a ladder for you. Can you imagine if you decided to be this for the uncle that came over for Thanksgiving that you didn't want there, or the one that was there for Christmas? That for years you've been saying, get it together, stop stealing from us, get a job. What if you decided this year, I'm not going to lord my authority over you and point a finger of judgment. I will do whatever it takes to help you get to where God wants you to be, even if it means I get used, even if it means I get stepped on. I'm going to be a ladder for you. What if we decided as a church that we were going to be ladders to the world around us? I'll tell you what would happen. We'd find significance. We'd find meaning. We'd find purpose. Because Jesus would say to you and I, stop climbing these. Be one. This is your purpose. This is who you're meant to be. So I want to make this really simple for us, and then I'll be done. I told you there were 4 letters that ruined my life in 2019. There are 4 words that I want to shape my 2020. And 4 words that I think could shape yours. 4 words that I think could change everything this year if you would just say them every day. How can I help? It's simple to say, it's difficult to do. But husbands, hear me, your wife is desperately waiting for you to ask this question when you get home from work. Wives, hear me. Your husbands are desperately waiting for you to ask this question. Parents, hear me. Your kids are desperately waiting to have a parent who would walk in the room and go, I know high school's hard. I'm not going to tell you how I know what it's like because I've been in high school too. You don't. That was years ago. They're facing challenges that are far different from even when I was in high school. And so they don't need you to tell them that you know what it's like. They need you to walk in the room and go, how can I help? I want to be a ladder for you. Can you imagine if you walked into your boss's office and you said, I know I have a job description, I'm going to do all of that, but how can I help? Can you imagine a coworker who's struggling and you decided, you know what, I'm going to be a ladder to you. How can I help you? I heard there's a promotion. You should get it. I'm going to go in the boss's office and tell him that it should be you and not me. Yeah, you might not get the raise. You might not get the money. You'll feel the purpose. You'll feel the meaning. You feel the significance that your heart desperately wants. What if we decided this year to be people who build ladders? What if we decided this year to be ladders for the people around us and to be people who would constantly ask the question, how can I help? Here's your New Year's resolution, to ask that question every day and see the difference you make this year and see how God uses you this year. We are not to climb ladders, not so with us. We are to be ladders for the world around us. And I believe if we do that, at the end of our lives, our Father in heaven will say to us, well done, my good and faithful servant. Father, thank you for the opportunity that you give us to follow your example, to follow your lead. That while you had all authority in heaven and earth, you chose not to lord that over us, but instead you chose to come humbly as a servant to us. That you would wash the feet of your disciples, but more than that, you would serve us by sacrificing your life on a cross when we did not earn it or deserve it. And so, Father, I just pray for all of us in the room that we would choose to be those kind of people, that we would choose to follow your lead, that we would choose to take seriously your word and to live lives that we are ladders to other people, that we help other people reach the potential that you have for them. And so, Father, I pray that you would use us. I pray that you would challenge us. And I pray this year would look different than last year, because instead of chasing status, we would chase significance in you.